The four ego parts in collapse-induced psychotic regression. In MPIT mapping, CIPR shatters the survivor's integrated ego into four distinct parts, each carrying its own object relations, affective state, and defensive function. Firstly, the mute child. Its nature is pre-verbal, frozen, and unreachable, holds the raw imprint of early maternal abandonment or engulfment. Its affect is terror, helplessness, and pre-verbal grief. The object relation, completely dependent on an external regulator, which is now absent. Its function acts as the innermost psychic wound, absorbing the annihilatory force of gaze collapse. 2. The false protector. Its nature is to be hypervigilant, defensive, hostile towards vulnerability. Its affect will be anger, suspicion, and contempt towards self and others. The object relation, it identified with the narcissist's bad object as a shield, and its function attempts to prevent further injury by preemptively rejecting intimacy and self disclosure. 3. The Redeemer. Its nature is to compulsively strive to re enter the shared fantasy. Its affect is desperation, longing, compulsive hope. And the object relation, idealizing, self sacrificing, drawn to the engulfing object. Its function, it maintains the illusion of potential repair, fueling hoovering susceptibility. 4. Our truth self, its nature, observing, disassociated, and witness consciousness. And its affect is numb detachment, existential grief. And the object relation, it's non engaged, it stands outside the libidinal and anti libidinal loop. Its function, it holds the capacity for future integration, but is currently inaccessible under collapse. The survivor's inner landscape during CIPR. Collapse induced psychotic regression is experienced as a loss of reality integrity. The survivor may report disassociation and depersonalization, time distortions, intrusive flashbacks, and symbolic dream imagery. Sudden affect storms, uncontrollable waves of rage, shame, or longing, confusion about their own motives and memories, inability to regulate even basic emotions without external stabilization. The narcissist's voice, or their facial expressions, mannerisms, and evaluations may now appear as intrusive ego states inside the survivor's mind. This is the installation of the bad object into the survivor's psychic field. What Fairburn saw as the endo-psychic structure, here made violently active. Why CPR is different from ordinary trauma regression. Unlike ordinary trauma regression, CIPR is co-constructed through the shared fantasy and then inverted. The survivor's collapse is not simply a return to early vulnerability. It is a mirrored enactment of the narcissist's own bad object world, now internalized. Autoerotic distortion. The survivor's libidinal drive now loops internally, fueling obsessive replay of idealized moments. Cold empathy inversion. The survivor can now read the narcissist in absence, but only through the bad object lens. This is the proto-IMRA state, the beginning of inverse mirrored reflexive apathy, where the narcissistic architecture is now operated by the survivor themselves in the absence of the narcissist. Once the survivor is in collapse induced psychotic regression, the narcissist engagement is opportunistic. They may hoover for supply only to discard again. They may provoke deliberately, using cold empathy to inflict further psychic injury. They may withdraw entirely, leaving the survivor in psychic freefall. Either way, the survivor is left orbiting an absent object. The gravitational pull remains, but the center has vanished. Collapse-induced psychotic regression in MPIT's collapse sequence. 1. Installation. The shared fantasy is accepted by the survivor. The narcissist installs an idealizing gaze. 2. Libidinal merging. The survivor's false self inflates. Narcissistic traits are embedded. 3. Hypocathexis. Cycles of idealization and devaluation drain the survivor's stability. 4. Decathexis and gaze collapse. The complete libidinal withdrawal, the severance of psychic recognition. 5. Collapse induced psychotic regression. Ego fragments into 4 distinct parts. Proto-IMRA phase begins. From here, the survivor enters the full IMRA phase, where the internalized shared fantasy loops without the narcissist's participation, locking them into the Hall of Mirrors architecture. Inverse mirrored reflexive apathy. IMRA is the fully inverted state of the shared fantasy, in which the narcissistic architecture, originally operated by the narcissist, is now run by the survivor themselves. It is the death drive executor in MPIT, the cold looping structure that annihilates affective connection while simulating relational engagement. Where CIPR is the shattering of ego structure, IMRA is the occupation of that shattered internal space by the bad object's operating system. This is no longer a wound being felt. This is the wound being run as a program. From CIPR to IMRA, the turn inwards. In collapse-induced psychotic regression, the survivor experiences chaotic fragmentation, competing ego parts, and desperate attempts to restore psychic balance. In IMRA, the fragments coalesce into a self-administered narcissistic structure. The survivor unknowingly becomes both narcissist and supply within their own psychic economy. This is why survivors in IMRA report relentless self-punishment, compulsive replay of the idealization phase, and anhedonia. They are maintaining the narcissist reality map, but with themselves as the target. Three components of IMRA: inversion. The narcissist gaze, cold empathy, and affective withdrawal are now deployed internally by the survivor towards their own ego parts. The redeemer part is baited with idealization, the mute child is shamed, and the false protector enforces the punishment. 2. Mirroring. Survivors mirror their own pain back to themselves, mistaking it for truth or self-honesty. This is not healthy self-reflection. It is coercive snapshotting turned inward. See Sam Vaknin. Freezing the worst self-images into the psyche. Reflexive apathy, the affective numbing once directed towards the survivor by the narcissist, is now self-applied, thus produces the Thanatos loop. The survivor cannot feel fully alive, yet also cannot fully collapse because the simulation keeps running. The survivor's subjective reality in IMRA. Survivors describe IMRA states as endless self-interrogation. What did I do wrong? Why wasn't I enough? Simulated conversations, replaying arguments, self-gaslighting, doubting memories, invalidating emotions, minimizing their own abuse.